10 reasons why we switch from Sony to Olympus, and 10 reasons why you shouldn't do the same. Hey guys, how you doing? Hope you're staying safe from all the viral issues we have in our society at the moment. The world's on this big craze of giving congratulations to the doctors and nurses out there, but I'm actually getting less work than ever. People are scared to go to the hospitals in Australia, and fortunately for us there's not that many cases, so namaste for everyone out there going through this. Let's just start off with how we got here. I actually rented the A7 III on the hopes that the A7S III was around the corner, and I guess I kind of got sick of waiting. And I've never purchased a Sony full frame camera. I had heaps of lenses that I purchased but never owned one. I thought I'd stop paying the $130 a month I was paying and buy something. Now, was it going to be a Sony camera or something different? This video I'll kind of share my rationale, and we're going to follow this up with a proper review on the Olympus EM5 MKIII. What a mouthful, what a cumbersome name, Olympus. Maybe you can drop the OMD or something, I don't know. Now, we've had this camera for about 2 months now, and I didn't want to rush into a review, so that's going to be a subsequent video down the line where I feel like I'm more familiar with this camera, because it is a big change going from Sony to Olympus, and they're both got a lot of idiosyncrasies, unique features, and there's nothing like this Olympus. It's a great little camera, and I didn't want to do it an injustice by not giving you all the details, and especially for the video shooters. I've seen a lot of reviews that kind of revolve around photography, but nothing really on the video side, like really in depth. But to the point, why did we switch? Just wanted to make a video just specifically what our needs were and why I think Olympus is meeting them a little bit better than what the Sony camera was. Firstly, the form, the size, the lightweight. When we film, we could be filming all day, and especially when we go overseas, we're going to be having this in our hands all day, and that's a lot of active use of the camera. Second, image stabilization. This camera's image stabilization is the best in the business. It's amazing. I'm going to go into more depth with that in the review, but let me just say, Elise and I are not extroverts, but we do like to video outside. Doing ninja walks in public is just something that's pretty draining for us. So just being able to trot around, not change your gait, and know that you're going to get really still footage on a gimbal. You're going to get like that crisp, flat, no jiggles, was something that was really important. Stabilization is a big thing for me. And if you didn't want to use the gimbal, along with the in-body image stabilization, you've also got a really good digital stabilization. Flip screen, it's funny, be careful what you wish for, because you might just get it. This flip screen is great. I mean, I can see myself right now. I don't have to worry about external monitors. I don't have to worry about the framing of the camera. There were so many times we just put the Sony A7 III up in front of us on the gimbal, and just trusting that we were framing ourselves correctly, and sometimes it didn't work out. It's just such a good thing that the autofocus on the Sony is so good that you didn't have to worry about that. But the framing is a really important thing. I was limiting my composition, so that was a part of it. But in saying that, I loved how you could get the tilt screen and put it at your waist and just look down at it, and you could see a perfect composition, and it'd be much more discreet than flipping out a side screen that people knew you were filming them. Maybe the Panasonic S1 is the best of both worlds there. Environmental portraits. We don't do too much variety in our photography. Most of it is environmental portraits. And when I say environmental, I don't mean bokehing everything out so that you don't even know where you are. I really like to stop things down, and I really like to see the background. The last trip we did in Japan, everything was stopping down. Nothing was shallow depth of field, because I wanted to see the place. Elise wasn't too close to the camera, but she was out there. I wanted kind of that everything in focus look, and that's actually really hard to get with a full frame camera, and Sony has such good ISO performance. It helped us out to get those images, and with this camera having the ISO advantage that the Sony has, it's got the image stabilization advantage, so we can lower shutter speeds, and that'll help keep the image cleaner, because we all know Micro Four Thirds don't have good ISO performance, and it might even look nice with a bit of motion blur from everyone else and at least just standing still. I kind of like the idea, so let's see where we go with it. Smaller lenses, that's a really big thing. I really don't like the long lens feel on cameras. I like the short weight close to the body feeling of prime lenses, so it was really nice to know that all these tiny lenses just make all the weight close to the body. Micro Four Thirds bokeh, so it's just completely enough for us. I mean, we're not bokeh heads. We've done some videos on in past how it's been overused, and subsequently Tony Northrup did a video which really proved our point. If you haven't seen it, check out the flaming that he got from Camera Conspiracies. But in saying that, the bokeh, I really like it on the Sony cameras. Wide range of glass. The amount of lenses on the Micro Four Thirds system is second to none. Sony is a second. I'm just really happy that I bought into something that has a really great lens lineup, because arguably that's the more important thing. Lots of small stuff for me, lots of wide, long, plenty of options for Panasonic, Olympus and third parties. It's a really good thing if you like specific characteristics in your lenses like I do. And they're less expensive, so good times. Next one is decent autofocus. This camera, Olympus, have the best autofocus of the Micro Four Thirds systems. If you're relying on some kind of autofocus system, it needs to be really good. I mean, I do miss the Sony. This one's got face tracking. It's a bit slower. We certainly can't do the move in and move out that we did with the Sony unless we stop a lot down and it's in daylight. We can't do things like this with this camera. And that was the third party lens, by the way. Samyang 45mm 1.8. This probably should have been way higher up in the list, but I mean, it's a given. The 4K image is amazing on this camera. I'm very happy with it. It's as good as Sony in such a little body and such a small sensor. I'm really happy with the quality of it. It's also got a really good flat profile that lets you grade and change things a little. I really think flat profiles are where it's at. The HLG profiles on the Sony cameras, because on these cameras you want to get the most dynamic range you can out of these consumer devices. It's a big part of why things look like a phone, or why things look cheap, or why they look like an Arri Alexa, is that dynamic range. It's the most important thing, and when your blacks are crushed, it just looks so cheap to me. I really like shadows, and if you want to get that in consumer cameras, you need to sacrifice a little bit of contrast to get some nice shadows and good highlight roll off. Finally, it's just everything we need and nothing we don't. It's got an audio level on the screen, and really that's all you need to get a level from your mic. A mic jack that doesn't block the flippy screen. It's got enough customizability. It's got good dynamic range, and it's going to inspire a few new opportunities. Personally, with the Sony, it's just such a complete package. I mean, most cameras are either better in photography and less thought gone into the video, but when the A7 III came out, it was just such a great camera, and that's why it's still a kind of a benchmark. Dynamic range, there's simply nothing better on the market in a consumer camera than the A7 III.
Was tied with the Sony A7 III and the Sony A7S II. Overall dynamic range, the A7S II and A7 III win because they also go very deep into the shadows. So it's unbelievable the amount of dynamic range that you're actually getting with the Sony cameras. No other camera comes close to these cameras.
The autofocus, like I mentioned earlier, it's very rare, even with third-party lens, that you get a major malfunction with the autofocus. The way it kind of pulls in and pulls out, it's a bit like a cinema camera. The lenses on, for example, Olympus and even Fuji, they're just designed for photography. They're not really designed for video. They're all pretty good with photography, but video, if that's your thing, I think Sony and Canon are the two best bets. The RAW files, again, with the dynamic range, I mean, I just had so much fun editing our last trip from Japan. You can just play with the settings while you're out there shooting. It gives you more options to shoot because, you know, if you push the ISO a little bit, you know you're going to be okay, and you can still get a fairly grain-free image even with quite high ISO. The shutter speed priority with auto exposure, it kept us in focus and it adapted to exposure changes really easy. I'm big on auto exposure. I know everyone thinks you should just do your own exposure, like to be all manual. If I want to hold an exposure and don't want that change, all you do is press auto exposure lock, and you can just get the exposure from where you want the shot to finish and then lock it there and go back. And then there's no mucking around with like blowing things out or underexposing. You always get it right. I just think that these cameras' metering systems are a lot less fallible. Maybe Roger Deakins and the other professional cinematographers out there, maybe they're exceptions, but I think we can safely rely on the metering systems in these cameras, especially the Sony one, which is really good. It's got multiple settings if you dive into that part of the menu. So the custom modes and buttons, that's another really favorite thing for me. The Olympus has got a version of that. It's probably 50% as good as the Sony's. Sony's just really great, and you can definitely take it for granted. Sony cameras, especially those small primes from Samyang and some of their older small primes. A lot of people have been criticizing Sony lately that they have to move up to a bigger body to get more features, to get this K, that K. There's going to be no camera company doing small full frame cameras then, so I like that Sony has set themselves apart from the pack and put all that technology in such a small body. I really appreciate it, because when you're carrying these things around all day and you go traveling with these cameras, it really makes a difference. I certainly wouldn't want to be carrying a Canon body with their massive lenses. Some even go up to 1.5 kilos. That is crazy. And I suppose it's great, but can you even find a tripod that's gonna not fall over when you put that on it? I hope you don't do workouts, because just like lugging that around for half an hour, you're gonna feel it. HLG3 for an 8-bit codec. It's a lovely thing to shoot with. So much details in the shadows. For someone that likes to shoot at night, I really find that valuable. And it's really easy to grade. You can just play a little bit around with the contrast and saturation. Don't need to play with LUTs, maybe just a bit with the color wheels, and it looks great. Changing costs a lot of money. Canon seems to be really on point at the moment, and it is interesting. But just remember why you got into the system at the beginning. Your camera isn't any less good than when you bought it. The features are still amazing, and there's other shiny toys out there. Yeah, they'll spark your interest, but just have a think about why you bought it. What were the features that you really were interested in? And I've talked about gear acquisition syndrome on this channel in the past. Do you really want that to be you? Do you really want to spend all your money because of advertisement, marketing designed to get every sucker that just wants the newest, shiniest toy? There's something else I'm sure you can do with that money that you could buy a new camera with. You could get a 3-week trip to various locations instead of a new camera. When you look back on that, you'll probably value the experience more than the new toy that come and gone. So that's just my thoughts on it. Perhaps a bit hypocritical, seeing as I changed. If you are intrigued by this Canon camera, I am with you on that, and it is a temptation for us camera people. So that's me being honest. Hope you're doing well. That's all from me for now. Thanks for watching this far. Hope you tune into our next video. Please support us by clicking like and subscribe if you haven't already, and talk to us in the comment section. Tell us what your thoughts are. See you guys.